I learned that I am gay. Let me tell you something about my past. I'm Robin. My mom raised me as a single parent. She was a waitress at a renowned hotel. She could afford both our livings, but she never had time for me. All my childhood, I lived alone. Until Hank came to live in the neighborhood. I must be around 12 to 13 years old then. Hank was a 25-year-old handsome man. He was a musician, so he was always free. We used to play video games together. I loved spending time with Hank. But time flew by. Hank too left the city. Now I was back alone. I had reached high school somehow. High school life was something different. New friends, new experiences, and courage. Life full of energy. Few months passed by, and all my friends had girlfriends. They began calling me a loser. They thought that I was afraid of asking a girl out. So, just to prove myself, I walked to a very beautiful girl, Katie. Katie had blue eyes, curly hair, and everything that a guy would die for. I stood before her and asked, "Hey Katie, I was thinking if we can have dinner tonight?" And she smiled and nodded yes. Everyone around us were hooting and cheering. This was something new for me, because for the first time I had asked a girl out. Katie and I had a dinner in a Chinese restaurant. We chatted and giggled. Katie was a very talkative girl. I liked her, but not as she liked me. She often brushed my hands, patted my shoulder, and she also tried to kiss me. But I could not understand why I was not liking it. Katie was pretty, but nothing about her excited me. But why? Next day, rumors spread in college that I was a loser and that I was afraid to kiss. How did everyone know this? I decided to confront Katie, and I saw her with my friend Jake. After seeing me, they both were laughing. Katie walked to me and laughed. She said that everything about yesterday was just for a bet with Jake. Jake was certain that I won't kiss, and Katie was certain that she could seduce me. But Katie lost, and Jake won. I asked Jake, what was all that? He said, a mirror. Go find yourself. And he left too. This was weird. What was Jake talking about? Few days passed and I met Jake again. This time he was alone in the lobby. I asked him, "Who do you think I am?" And he said, "You're not the one you're pretending to be." Again, a weird answer. He patted my back and said, "Sit back and relax. Don't force yourself. Ask yourself, who do you like? You will get all your answers." I went home, quizzical. I could not sleep, so I sat down and tried to solve this puzzle. I asked myself, whom do I like the most? And I was shocked. I saw Hank. I love his body, his muscles, and everything about him. I was lost in my thoughts, and I was imagining that Hank kissed me. I so loved the moment. I was totally taken by it. But then, guilt crept in. I began thinking that this is not right. I cannot like men. This is wrong. I was blaming myself. The next day, I went in search of Jake. Paranoid, I told him everything. He took a deep breath and said that he already knew about it. I asked again, "But how?" And he replied because even he feels the same. He expressed how he liked boys more than girls and openly accepted that he's gay. I was shocked at first. But later on his words made sense. For the very first time, I realized I was different. And that's not a crime. I did not do anything wrong, and it's perfectly okay to like boys. My guilt was gone. Jake and I started hanging around, and soon we started dating. I liked Jake. He was very funny and caring. But then something awful happened. My mom was worried why on earth I have no girlfriends. She inquired all my friends and she came to know that I was gay. She was shocked. She could never accept that her son could be gay. She confronted me, yelled at me, scolded me. I tried to convince her that I was happy the way I am. But things were getting worse. Years passed and I was a graduate now. On my graduation party, she tried to set me up with her friend's daughter. I sensed her plan and moved away. Few days later, Mom came in my room and gave me a notice that if I wished to be her heir, then I would have to marry a girl, or else I would not be getting anything. I smiled and said, I would rather live on a street than spoiling an innocent girl's life. My mom was furious. She summoned me to abandon the house. I knew she was angry, and I thought maybe she needed some time alone for her to digest the fact that her son is gay. I moved in with Jake. We were inseparable from college. I got a job as a banker. Jake is working too. We have an apartment of our own, and we live together happily. Few days back, I got a call from the hospital that my mom is not well. But when I wanted to meet her, she asked me not to show my face again. She was still furious. I could not understand what on earth did I do wrong. I was the way I am and I can't change myself. I like boys, and that's how God has made me. I just have one wish, that one day my mom would understand me and accept me the way I am. I love you, Mom.
Hey, I am Betty. I study in high school. I am pretty popular among all. That's because of my nature to prank everyone. I had pranked my parents, my brother, and almost everyone I had met. But this prank became fatal for me. No, I did not injure myself physically, but I was shattered into pieces by his one smile. Me and my gang planned a paint bucket prank on whoever enters the class. And it happened that our new professor Jake was trapped. I was certain that I would get detention, but the very next moment, he smiled and laughed heartily. Even I did the same with my teacher. You guys just reminded me of my past. He could not control his laughter and said he would return in a while. His first impression was enough to slaughter me. Oh, his smile, I can never forget it. Although he was my professor, but I had fallen for him. He returned in a while. He had changed his clothes and the smile was still there on his face. He asked, "Anyways, whose plan was it?" And the whole gang looked at me. He walked to me. "You seem to be the leader of the gang. That was a nice prank. What is your name?" I was lost. He waved at me and then he again asked, "What's your name?" I said, "Betty," hurriedly. "Nice to meet you, Betty. I am Jake." He put his hand forward for a handshake and I remember how my hands were trembling. I was nervous. I had never been so nervous my entire life. How can I be like this? I am supposed to be a bully, but something was different. Whenever I saw him, I was lost. My gang soon noticed me and began to tease me by his name. "Betty has fallen for the professor. Betty has fallen for the professor." They sang this all day and irritated me. Soon, everyone in the class knew how I feel about the professor. The news spread like wildfire. And soon enough, it reached the professor's ears. He called me one day after the school. I was tensed. I knew I was wrong, and what impression will it leave on the professor? But to my dismay, the professor wasn't even angry with me. He said, "In your age, these things do happen." And then he narrated his own story of how he had a crush on his biology professor. To comfort me, he even added, "Do not worry about your friends teasing you. They will always, but that shouldn't bother you." That day, I felt what an amazing person Jake was. None of my other professors had ever spoken to me. But Jake was different. My classmates continued to tease me, but they didn't bother me anymore. I was more interested in what Jake had in store for me. Soon, we started meeting after school. We hanged out together. I now began to call Jake by his name. Jake was fun to be with. He would talk to me as a friend. I even forgot that he is twice my age and was my professor. In this school prom, I danced with Jake. Oh, what a memory I could never forget. And then, he came to drop me at my place. This was the moment. I was totally into him, and he knew it. And then we kissed for the first time. I was over the moon. That night, I could sleep thinking about Jake and me. I had never dreamt that I would ever date my professor. A day later, he invited me to his house. This was our first date. We spent quality time together, and then he took me to his bedroom. We kissed and made out. I was no longer a virgin, but I was happy. I had found the man I loved, the man who cared for me. We would hang around together, watch movies, and enjoy every moment of our life as if we were the soulmates. This continued of almost 6 months. Until one day at parents-teachers meet, my father came to school. He was shocked seeing Jake, and even Jake was terrified. I inquired, "What's wrong, Dad?" But he did not reply. I asked Jake, "What is it?" And he did not answer me. I was confused and wanted to know the matter. My father took me home, and all the way, I kept asking him what the matter was. Finally, when we were home, he broke his silence. "Jake is my son." What? My whole world was a lie. How can it be? I asked. My father added, "Jake's mother was pregnant when she was only 17, and my father backed out." And since that day, Jake's mother never ever saw him. By that means, Jake was my stepbrother. Oh no! What had we done? I was dating my own brother? I slept with my brother? What? I was devastated. I didn't understand what should I do. I cried and cried. Guilt was building inside me. Oh, what have I done? I shouldn't have. In my guilt, I left my home haphazardly. I didn't know where I was heading. I kept walking until I heard a loud noise. Boom! I met with a fatal accident and now I am in the ICU. I don't know what would happen to me. Will I live or die? Was it my fault that I dated my own brother? Answers are yet to be found. If I live, I would surely suffer my guilt. It's better that I die and rest in peace. If you like my story, do comment and subscribe to our channel.